What do you genuinely not understand? Why I continue to procrastinate and self-sabotage. Edit. Thanks for all the awards and comments. Just wanted to say a few things. This was not supposed to be a cry for help. I'm fine. Just was in a bad mood yesterday when I posted. Yes, I have had depression and anxiety. Anyone who suggested that maybe the cause is correct. I'm on meds. They help a ton. If this comment rang true to anyone, I would definitely recommend seeing a mental health professional. It can make a world of difference. Anyone who suggested it's because I'm lazy, not disciplined, or any other r/thanks incurred type nonsense, you can go duck yourself. Let's find that out later. This is totally due to me not looking it up, but I don't know how dry cleaning works. Understandable, it's a liquid, like a solvent, that is water free. Oh, I thought it was called dry cleaning cause they dried it up afterwards. I thought it was called dry cleaning cause they had a method of cleaning where the clothes don't get wet. The order of emails in a Gmail thread. I used to look at the date/time of each message in a thread to orient myself. Until I started working with an international team and realized Gmail sometimes puts their timestamp on the message, not mine. The realization came when I was going through a chain and noticed half the messages were sent from the future. Edit. I couldn't in good conscience use realization and realized in the same sentence. My apologies to the gods of prose. Chemistry. I only passed because my professor curved every F to a C. You gotten. Your genius knows no bounds. Sudden motivation at midnight. I've read that it's due to there being no pressure or thoughts of what could go wrong. This is due to the fact that the motivation is typically for things that would be in the future or carry over into the future, and there is no reason to start or finish the things being thought of at that moment. Makes sense. I've always associated successful people with the lack of fear of failure. Anytime I read about successful business people, they always like to point out how many times they failed. This always confuses me because somehow they shrug and go, oh well. What about the debt or bankruptcy or whatever else caused the business to fail, and how do they immediately turn around and just try something else? Most people I have met would not be able to do this. Edit. I'm addressing the financial aspect in terms of fear of failure. Most are unable to go from failed business to startup due to prior debt. Why does the word fridge have the letter D in it, while refrigerator does not? Duck this shit, I didn't realize that. I only know it because I've typed refrigerator and gotten the squiggly red line about a million times lol. How these dogs that have these dense bangs hanging over their eyes can see a single goddamn thing. Ask the emo kids. I worked with a guy who used to have emo side bangs in high school. He told me he couldn't see shit for 2 years. That no concept of an absolute position in space exists. Oh, for duck's sake. My day was going so well. Thanks for that. If it helps, we have lots of guideposts. Pulses spin very consistently, and we have documented and mapped out a lot of them. We can use these as place markers to orient ourselves if we ever become a galaxy-faring species, big if there. Edit. Faring, because I'm an idiot. Bitcoin mining. Solving algorithms? What? Who? Why? Imagine if keeping your car idling 24/7 produced solved Sudokus you could trade for heroin. Edit. My friends, I paraphrased this from something I read years ago, and the original source is apparently a tweet. I'm not comfortable with all these awards. Finally, an explanation that makes sense. You know what they say. Anything can be explained with heroin. Why the duck does my brain only realize I'm wrong after I've already done it? And why is the time between hitting send and realizing that was dumb measured in femtoseconds? It's weird since you didn't see anything wrong with it after spending 10 minutes proofreading and worrying about how the other end will interpret the message. Edit. Then you send it and realize that you ducked up somehow. Pro tip, you can create a rule in Outlook to delay messages by any time you want. I have my sent to delay by 1 minute. If I notice something wrong in that nanosecond, I can go to my outbox and fix it. Space, it makes my brain hurt trying to figure out things like stars and black holes, etc. The size and distances with space are hard to fathom. The time it takes to get anywhere is depressing. Oh, you mean the whole concept of being frozen on a spaceship in your mid-20s to wake up 200 years later, hopefully, outside Jupiter and realizing everyone you knew is dead. Why do people who seem miserable as parents decide to have more kids? I'd like to direct this question towards the parents I currently nanny for. The father clearly doesn't like his kids, has said before he never even wanted kids, and yet they have three children that are quite honestly some of the worst behaved kids I've ever worked with, and I've been working with kids in and out of a school setting going on 15 years now. Why didn't you stop after the first one? Wife wants kids, has an unloving husband, but thinks it's too late to start over. Husband who doesn't want kids wants to give his wife something to keep her busy because being married is a part of his image and social standing, and makes enough money he figures wife and nanny can raise kids without him being involved too much. Wife is happy each time a baby is born, but quickly resets to the base level of unhappiness she normally has in her marriage. Continues to have more, hoping to eventually fill the void, but unsurprisingly loses interest in her kids as well, because they are band-aids for her misery, not fixes. Nanny proceeds to raise kids alone, wife starts a daytime affair and calls it going to the gym. Husband doesn't care, because his nighttime affair is called working late. That's the waspiest version I could imagine for you. How light is both a particle and a wave? It's neither. It's something that we don't have a word for, and that doesn't exist in a way that we can sense directly. But this unnamed thing happens to act in a way similar to a wave in some situations, and like a particle in others. A cylinder will roll like a sphere in one direction, but not roll like a cube in the other. That doesn't make it a sphere and a cube at the same time. It makes it something different. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. Edit 2. To answer the many why don't we name it then, or we do have a name for it, it's slight/photon/something else comments. The problem isn't the lack of a word, the problem is how to convey the meaning behind the word. Plus typo fixes. The YouTube algorithm. Let's recommend this video to everyone. In 5 years. And again 5 years later. Also this shit. YouTube, you can't say anything R-rated. Also YouTube, can NYOUFALTHEDFFON SEBETWENADLDONDA real cock? Edit, holy shit, this blew the duck up. RIP my inbox. Asterisk AT work watching YouTube videos. Ad begins, there is a bacteria called a coelacanthus and it can make your balls bigger. Me and my horrified coworkers waiting for a funny cat video. I really do not get how a needle in a record player bouncing back and forth can create such rich sound. I just can't even imagine how rubbing a needle against vinyl can create a perfect replication of a sound. I get that it could make sound like a rubbing noise, but to replicate a human voice. What is happening there? A simple, and not entirely accurate, but understandable, description is just that sound is a wave, in the physics sense. When creating a record, the needle is vibrated in a manner so it exactly captures the shape of the wave the sound is making, and it etches it into the record. When you play back the record, it uses that vibration to recreate the wave, and thus it recreates the sound. The record does of course make a very quiet scratching/rubbing sound, but it's the tiny movement of the needle that actually tells the record player exactly what sound to make. How electricity works. Amps, volts, watts, etc. Ugh. Amps, how many electrons flow. Volts, the force with which the generator is pushing these electrons. Watts, the amount of energy carried every second. This of course depends on the amount of electrons, so the amps, and the force they are pushed, so the volts. Watts. If watts is the speed of energy transfer, this is the distance, that is the total amount of energy you transfer. Which means that, if you have 200 watts of energy available and something consumes 100 watts, you can only power it for 2 hours. If it consumes 50 watts, you can power it for 4 hours. I'm highly entertained that Jard Sparks is getting electricity fundamentals from Giant Electron. Those people who do parkour on high-ass buildings. One mistake and you're dead. Well, they get a buzz out of that feeling of risk, and so they keep doing it to keep replicating that buzz. If it were safe they wouldn't do it, because there would be no excitement. I think a better question is, how they don't die more frequently? Honestly, I think they do get injured severely and killed regularly. Their friends just don't post the videos. Quantum physics. But mostly how there could ever be a smallest thing. Like everything is made up of something else. Zooming down, how could there be something that's not made up of smaller parts? Like string theory, right? Smallest thing is supposed to be vibrating strings of energy. Like what is that energy made of? I don't get it. Why the hiring process at most companies is so damn slow. Back in the 60s, you could walk into a business asking about a job on Friday and start work the following Monday. Now, despite having access to tons of information about a candidate on the internet, it takes 6 or more weeks in many cases. My ex once interviewed for a job and thought she did terrible. She never heard back at all, so accepted something else that she interviewed for at the same time. They called her almost 2 months later to tell her they had accepted her and she had the job. Her response: no. I have a great job. And why would I even want to work for a place that treats a future employee like that? They seemed generally confused that she wasn't waiting for them to call her. Existent and self-aware, the more you think the more the concept of I is creepy. My consciousness was ripped from the void and shoved into this body. Does it go back when I die? Is it nothingness or something more? Exactly my question. And why? Why was my consciousness chosen at the time of my birth? Anyone else could have been put in this body, but it was me. My consciousness could have been out into a body 1000 years ago, or 1000 years into the future. Why now? All fascinating stuff to think about, but it also gives me anxiety sometimes. How I get taller and more handsome every time my grandma sees me. After waiting in a long line to check out, why is it that people don't have their money ready? They get to the register and have to search for a credit card or look for coupons. All that time in line they could have had it organized and ready to go. Yes, oh my god. They look at the cashier annoyed when there's a long line, and when they get to the end, they take 5 minutes looking for their method of payment. Like, bitch, what have you been doing in line?